You walk into an ordinary room, and your mind starts working before you do. By the time everyone else settles in, part of you is already tired. Nothing dramatic happened. No conflict, no crisis, no loud scene, and yet your body leaves with the weight of something real. A grocery store, a small dinner, a quiet office, a short ride across town. Other people pass through them and barely notice a thing. But you notice everything. The tight smile at the register, the fluorescent buzz, the rushed tone in someone's voice, the tension nobody names. Your mind does not just see a room. It keeps reading it, adjusting to it, and carrying pieces of it long after you leave. So you start asking a private question. Why do normal places leave you feeling like you survived something instead of simply attending it? It is often awareness without a switch. You are taking in more than the moment seems to require. Deeply observant people rarely enter spaces at face value. They scan tone, pace, energy, facial shifts, pauses, and what is happening underneath words. And that kind of awareness has a cost, especially when it keeps running in places where nobody else realizes there's anything to process. You can look calm while your nervous system is busy sorting 10 different signals. That mismatch makes your exhaustion hard to explain. Maybe you sat in a cafe and felt drained before your coffee cooled. Not because it was loud, but because your mind never stopped tracking. You notice the couple pretending not to fight. You notice the barista pushing through a bad mood and the person behind you standing too close. Sensitive awareness is rarely exhausted by one huge moment. More often, it gets worn down by constant micro-contact with everything around it. A room can seem normal and still be mentally expensive, especially when you are absorbing tone, tension, texture, and atmosphere all at once. This is why you can come home from something small and need silence immediately. It was not the event itself that exhausted you. It was the ongoing effort of staying attuned. You were reading the room, managing yourself, and filtering stimulation the whole time. Some people move through life by noticing only what directly concerns them. You move through life noticing what is slightly off, emotionally loaded, or quietly unresolved. Think about how often your body stays composed while your mind keeps translating. A joke that sounded fine, but carried an edge. A simple conversation that looked harmless, but left a strange feeling in your chest. A quick errand that somehow turned into mental static. This is not you being too much. It is you processing more layers at the same time. The problem is that modern life rewards looking functional, not noticing overload early. So many observant people keep going long past their actual limit. They smile through the dinner. They finish the meeting, answer the texts, drive home, and only then feel the crash. That delayed fatigue can make you doubt yourself. You wonder why a perfectly normal day suddenly feels heavy after it is already over. But your system often processes in layers. First survival, then interpretation, then the emotional bill. That is why bedtime can become strangely loud. The room is quiet, but your mind starts unpacking what your body carried all day. You replay the look on someone's face. You rethink the sentence you almost said, the pause that felt odd, the moment the atmosphere changed. Deep observation does not stop when the event ends. It follows you into the shower, the kitchen, the drive home, the dark room. And because the original situation seems small, you often judge yourself for still feeling it. That judgment adds a second layer of exhaustion. Now you are tired from the experience and from trying to prove to yourself it should not matter. That inner argument is its own form of noise. A lot of mentally exhausted people are not constantly doing too much. They are constantly noticing too much without enough recovery. You can be physically still and still feel overloaded. Sitting quietly does not help much if your mind is still sorting human signals. This is why crowded places are not always the hardest part. Sometimes the most draining spaces are controlled, polite, and subtly tense. A family dinner with unfinished history. An office where nobody says what they mean. A waiting room full of held breath. On paper, these are normal settings, but for an observant person, they are filled with invisible information. You notice who is performing ease. You notice who is shrinking, who is irritated, who is trying too hard, who wants to leave. And because you notice it, part of you adjusts to it. You choose words carefully, soften your tone, monitor reactions, and stay mentally braced. That effort can look like maturity. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is just adaptation that never gets to rest. People may even describe you as easygoing. They do not see how much inner work is happening beneath your calm face. They do not see how your attention keeps moving, screen brightness, chair discomfort, someone's mood shift, the conversation rhythm, the sense that something is off. Your mind is not being difficult. It is trying to create safety through understanding. When you understand a space, you can prepare for it. When you can prepare, you can stay regulated. But if you are always preparing, you are rarely fully resting. Even in ordinary moments, your system stays half alert. That is why relaxing around people can feel harder than being alone. Solitude removes the need to keep reading the field. When no one else is present, your senses finally stop multitasking. Your body can drop the social listening it has been carrying. Many observant people do not feel their exhaustion in real time. They feel it only when stimulation stops. That is why you might leave a lunch date looking fine and collapse on the couch an hour later. The impact takes time to arrive. It also explains why some mornings feel heavy before the day even starts. You never fully came down from yesterday. Your body may have slept, but your mind did not completely clear the residue. Tiny fragments stayed active in the background. That residue can come from almost anywhere. A sharp tone in the grocery store, a tense elevator ride, a friend who seemed off but said nothing. This is where deeply observant people often get misunderstood. Others assume tiredness must come from overwork, conflict, or obvious stress. They do not realize that sensitivity also creates a kind of invisible labor. You are noticing patterns, reading subtext, and carrying impressions all day. Even beauty can be intense for you. A sad song, a heavy sky, a distant expression can stay with you longer than expected. And when life lands harder, normal environments can stop feeling neutral. They become full contact experiences for the mind. A bright store is not just a store. It is lighting, movement, social proximity, decisions, background music, and the pressure to keep pace. A casual gathering is not just conversation. It is tone management, emotional reading, self-monitoring, and the slow effort of staying open. Even a simple workplace can become exhausting if you are constantly sensing what people are not saying. Hidden tension is still stimulation. That does not mean you are broken for feeling tired there. It means your threshold gets used by things others filter out automatically. Some people naturally block what is irrelevant. You are more likely to let it enter, sort it, and attach meaning to it. That meaning-making is important. It helps you understand people deeply, catch problems early, and sense emotional truth. But meaning-making becomes draining when it never pauses. Every room becomes a puzzle, and every puzzle asks for energy. This is also why small talk can feel bigger than it looks. You are not just exchanging words. You are sensing sincerity, distance, effort, discomfort, and whether the connection feels safe. That is a lot for a 2-minute interaction. Then later, while brushing your teeth or staring at the ceiling, the conversation returns. Not because you are obsessed, but because your mind is still finishing it. Observant people often close the day with an open tab list in their head. Faces, tones, tiny moments, emotional leftovers, unsent reactions. You just call yourself tired. Maybe introverted, maybe weird, maybe bad at handling ordinary life. But often, the deeper truth is more precise. You are carrying a level of intake that your surroundings keep treating as trivial. That mismatch is lonely. You can feel deeply affected by a place everyone else calls fine. So you start hiding the aftermath. You say you are just tired, even when the tiredness feels more psychological than physical. You cancel plans without knowing how to explain it. You need more quiet than seems socially reasonable. You sit in your car for a few extra minutes before going inside. You stand in the kitchen after guests leave and feel your whole body trying to come back. Sometimes the first real breath of the day happens after the world stops asking anything from you. That says more than most people realize. It means your exhaustion is not laziness. It is often the cost of sustained inner vigilance. And inner vigilance can develop for many reasons. Personality, temperament, past stress, family dynamics, or simply a brain that catches subtle detail fast. You do not need a dramatic backstory for this pattern to be real. Some people are simply built with less emotional insulation. They feel more, notice more, and recover more slowly, not because they are fragile, but because their systems are thorough. If it stays unsupported, depth can turn into chronic strain, insight can become overprocessing, and empathy can become silent overload. So the goal was not to romanticize your exhaustion. Being deeply observant has real value, but the fatigue is real too. Because once you name the cost, you stop blaming yourself for paying it. That changes something important inside. You stop forcing yourself to fit environments that keep scraping your system raw. You start respecting the difference between normal and sustainable. Those are not the same thing. A place can be socially normal and still be too much for your mind. A person can be kind and still leave you drained. A room can be quiet and still feel crowded inside your body. You admit that some places tire you because you are taking in more than they appear to hold. You stop waiting for outer proof. You stop needing the room to look extreme before you allow yourself recovery. That alone can soften a lot of shame. And recovery, for people like this, is rarely just sleep. It is reduced input, emotional unclenching, and moments where nothing needs to be interpreted. It is sitting in a dim room without performing. It is walking without conversation and letting your senses return to baseline. Sometimes it is choosing fewer places, fewer voices, fewer obligations in one day. Not to become smaller, but to stay whole. Because when you keep overriding your limits, your perception does not disappear. It just becomes heavier. You may grow numb, irritable, detached, or strangely distant from yourself. Not because you stopped caring, but because caring stayed overloaded too long. Sometimes they look flat. Sometimes they look quiet, disconnected, or hard to read because their system is protecting the last bit of space it has. The world often misreads that. It sees reserve where there is actually saturation. And when nobody recognizes the saturation, you may start minimizing it too. You tell yourself to be less sensitive and try harder. But forcing dullness is not the same as finding peace. It just teaches you to abandon your own signals. They tell you when a place is asking more from your mind than it seems to ask from everyone else. They tell you when your calm is costing too much. You do not need to build your whole self around being the sensitive one. You only need to stop betraying what your system keeps telling you. Maybe that means leaving earlier. Maybe it means protecting your evenings instead of filling every opening with more input. Maybe it means finally admitting that some normal places are never neutral for you. They are work even when nobody else calls them work. That honesty can feel sad at first. It asks you to stop comparing your inner reality to other people's visible comfort. But it also feels relieving, because the moment you stop arguing with your wiring, you get some energy back. And maybe that is what you needed all along. Not tougher skin, but truer language for what your days have been costing you. You were never weak for coming home tired from ordinary places. You were tired because ordinary places were never entering you in an ordinary way. You were reading beneath the surface, carrying emotional weather and holding yourself together inside environments that looked simple from the outside. That is real work. So if normal places leave you unusually drained, pay attention. Your exhaustion may be saying something accurate, not exaggerated. It may be telling you that your awareness is deep, your system is busy, and your recovery deserves more respect than you give it. Listen to that. Because some people walk into a room and only see a room, and some people walk in and feel the whole atmosphere move through them. If you're one of those people, your tiredness is not a mystery. It is the shadow cast by how much you notice.